The corridor alarms screamed again, which felt unnecessary because everything was already on fire, drifting, or trying to kill me. I floated forward anyway, boots magnetized, arguing with my suit AI about whether saving power was more important than saving my spine. I'm just saying, I muttered, if we survive, I'm filing a complaint. The AI said it would log my feelings for later mockery. That was when the stasis pod cracked open and she fell into my arms like the universe had tripped on purpose. She gasped, eyes sharp, breath uneven, long ears pressed back as if listening for ghosts. You live, she said, voice steady despite the chaos. Then I live. I told her that was an odd way to say hello and suggested we relocate before the station finished exploding with enthusiasm. She stared as if I had spoken a holy joke. The corridor lurched, I swore. She smiled faintly, which I took as consent. We ran, or drifted. Movement was negotiable. Drones peeled out of vents, polite murder machines with manners. I shot one, missed two, and kicked a third because physics was feeling generous. She moved beside me, quick and precise, hands glowing with interface light I pretended not to notice. You should not be here, she said. You are not registered? I told her I get that a lot at weddings. She laughed, then covered it, embarrassed as if joy were contraband. We reached my ship, a ship only in the loosest legal sense. The hatch jammed, I hit it, it opened. She watched this ritual with reverence. You command matter, she said. I told her it responds to insults. Inside, the AI woke and asked if I'd brought friends or liabilities. Both, I said. The engines coughed, then decided to cooperate. We jumped on a half-solution vector, stars folding like bad advice. She steadied herself and bowed, formal, ancient. You saved me, she said. My people will remember your name. I scratched my helmet. Please don't, I said. I'm just a human. She tilted her head, ears lifting, studying me as if humility were a rare mineral. Then, she replied softly, you are my savior. I laughed because it seemed safer than believing her, and the ship laughed too, which meant something expensive had just broken. The AI interrupted to announce pursuit, 3 signatures arguing about jurisdiction. I told it to pick a song. It chose silence. She asked what silence was for. Respect, I said, and suspense. She nodded seriously, then asked if humans always joked while fleeing extinction. Only on weekdays, I said. The ship shuddered as something clipped us. I apologized to the ship. It accepted, then demanded snacks. She introduced herself with a name that bent time. I said my tongue signed a waiver and offered a nickname. She accepted, amused, then asked why I hadn't claimed reward. I told her rewards were how trouble sent invitations. She considered that and said her people believed the same, except they called it destiny. The AI snorted. We jumped again, stars folding into a new argument, and for a moment the alarms stopped screaming as if even danger needed a breath. She asked to see my face. I said it was rated average. We compromised. She studied me, eyes bright, ears attentive, and said my pulse was calm. I told her my heart had terrible timing. Outside, something massive warped in, announcing itself with gravity like a bad entrance. The AI suggested heroics. I suggested evasive cowardice. We voted. Cowardice won by a landslide. I plotted a jump through a debris wake because chaos is a map if you squint. She placed a hand on the console and whispered coordinates that tasted like rain. The ship obeyed her and then apologized to me. I felt offended on principle. We slid through, hull singing, jokes exhausted, breath shared. When we emerged, quiet returned, suspicious and clean. She bowed again. You diminish yourself, she said. Why? I shrugged. If you aim low, gravity is kinder. She smiled fully, then unafraid, and said gravity followed me anyway. I told her gravity had poor judgment. The AI logged that for later mockery. We set course for nowhere specific, which felt like progress. She asked what I wanted in return. I said a nap and fewer alarms. She said she would try to arrange the second. The AI failed to suppress a laugh. We drifted, checking systems, counting damage like freckles. She helped without being asked, which felt illegal in several ports. When I thanked her, she corrected me, insisting the debt ran the other way. I suggested we call it even and order noodles. She asked what noodles were. I said salvation in string form. A message cracked through, translated twice and still offended. Her pursuers offered amnesty in exchange for her return. She read it calm, I deleted it calmer, she stared. You did not consult me, she said. I consulted my conscience, I replied. It's loud. She laughed again, freely this time, and said my conscience sounded brave. I told her it was mostly stubborn. We shared silence that wasn't suspense, just space doing what it does. She spoke of home without making it heavy. I spoke of nowhere without making it sad. The AI asked if we were a crew now. I said temporary, she said chosen. The ship trader agreed with her. I checked the stars and felt the universe watching, curious. I'm just a human, I reminded them all. She touched the console, steady as truth. That, she said, is why this matters. The alarms tried once more, then gave up. I promised repairs and meant it. She asked what came next. I said we'd improvise and pretend it was a plan. She approved. Somewhere behind us, empires adjusted their ledgers. Somewhere ahead, noodles waited, probably. I set the engines to hum and let the jump spool slowly because rushing had never helped anyone. She watched me with that look again, not awe, just certainty. I laughed because certainty is dangerous and because laughter keeps things from breaking. The ship agreed, humming off-key. She leaned back, long ears relaxed, and closed her eyes as if trust were easy. I kept flying because that part was. Stars folded. The future pretended not to notice us. For now, that was enough. The AI asked for a name to log the incident. I said right accident. She said right rescue. The AI wrote both and underlined hers. I sighed and set a reminder to argue later. She opened her eyes and smiled like someone who knew arguments could wait. I kept the course steady because steady is a kind of courage too. Space stretched. We did not. The jump engaged, gentle, and the stars became lines, then silence, and for a heartbeat I believed her. I laughed again, softly, just in case the universe was listening. It usually is. I checked the instruments and kept going. Tomorrow could wait, we let it. The engines hummed. Quiet held. We breathed, together, still flying. End. The ship drifted long enough for the silence to start making suggestions, so I turned the hum up a notch and pretended it was intentional. The AI complained that I was wasting power. I told it anxiety also consumed resources. It logged that under philosophical errors. She opened her eyes and asked if the noise meant danger. I said no, it meant comfort, like a cat purring if the cat were full of wires and judgment. She moved through the cockpit with careful confidence, touching nothing and understanding everything. Your vessel listens to you, she said. Sometimes, I replied. Other times it files grievances. The AI asked if it was allowed to glare. I said no, but it could sigh. It sighed theatrically. She smiled, long ears lifting, and asked if that was humor. I told her it was close enough. We were still being followed, but from farther away, like someone reconsidering a bad life choice. I plotted a lazy arc through a nebula that looked expensive to ensure. She watched the stars smear and asked why humans traveled when space was so determined to kill them. Spite, I said, and curiosity. She considered that and said her people traveled for responsibility. I told her responsibility sounded heavier. She agreed and laughed, then apologized for laughing. I told her laughter didn't require permits. The AI announced we were approaching a fold gate, dormant and sulking. I asked it to wake the gate gently. It tried sarcasm. The gate responded with gravity waves and an attitude. She stepped closer, placing her hand near the console, not touching, just being, systems aligned. The gate opened like it had been waiting for her. The ship noticed and cleared its throat. I pretended not to feel jealous. On the other side, space felt quieter, like a room where an argument had just ended. I relaxed a fraction. She asked about food. I offered ration paste or noodles. She chose noodles with the seriousness of a vow. While the dispenser argued with itself, she asked about my home. I said it moved a lot. She said that explained things. I asked what it explained. She said my balance. A signal pinged, friendly and suspicious. A trader hailed us, voice oily with relief. The AI recommended caution. I recommended boredom. We answered. The trader saw her and went very still. Is that, he began. I cut the channel. Is that rude? She asked. It's efficient, I said. The AI marked a note about my social skills and underlined it. She asked why others wanted her returned. I said people liked what they could own. She said her people believed lives weren't possessions but obligations. I said humans had similar ideas on good days. She asked if today was a good day. I said it was improving. The AI suggested that was optimism and requested a system check. We jumped again, skirting patrol lanes. The ship complained less now, as if adapting to her presence. She noticed. It trusts me, she said, surprised. It barely trusts me, I replied. She tilted her head, listening to something I couldn't hear. It trusts you differently, she said, like a storm trusts a mountain. I told her storms were dramatic, she said so were mountains. A warning flared. The pursuers were closer, coordinated now, clever. I rolled the ship, letting debris and false echoes do the talking. She watched, calm. You do this often, she said. Only when necessary, I said, which was often. She asked if I was afraid. I said fear was just anticipation with better branding. She laughed and said her people had a word for that. I asked what it meant. She said it meant bravery pretending to be sense. We lost one of them in a gravity well that didn't care about intentions. Another peeled off. The last stayed stubborn. The AI asked for permission to deploy something illegal. I said we were already improvising. She raised a hand, hesitated, then nodded. I nodded back, not knowing why. She sang softly, not music, more like math remembering itself. Space bent. The pursuer overshot and vanished into probability. The ship stabilized, offended and impressed. Silence returned, real this time. I exhaled. She looked at me, searching. You are unchanged, she said. I expected something different. I shrugged. I try not to upgrade mid-flight. She smiled, thoughtful, and said change could be quiet. I said quiet was underrated. The AI asked if we were safe. I said safe enough to eat. Noodles arrived, steaming bravely. She tasted them and closed her eyes. This, she said, is worthy. I felt absurdly proud. We ate, trading stories without weight. She spoke of councils and stars with names that carried history. I spoke of jobs that went wrong and jokes that went worse. She listened like it mattered. When we finished, she bowed again, softer now. You continue to save me, she said. I waved it off. I'm just feeding a passenger. She met my eyes. You are teaching me, she said, that humility can be strength. I opened my mouth, then closed it because arguing felt like work. The AI plotted a course to a place that wasn't on maps. I approved. She asked what we would do there. I said rest, maybe fix things, definitely argue less with machines. She approved of rest. As the engine spooled, she leaned back, trusting, and I kept the ship steady. Stars folded again, patient. I laughed softly because patience felt new. The universe listened and for once didn't interrupt. The place off the maps turned out to be quiet in a way that felt intentional, like the universe had set the room aside for thinking. I eased the ship down and the engines sighed, relieved. The AI announced we had arrived somewhere improbable and asked if it should feel proud. Yes, I said, but don't tell anyone. It logged secrecy and immediately told me it would forget. She stepped closer to the console, watching readouts settle. They will not follow, she said. Not here. I asked how she knew. She said some places refused to be found. I said that sounded like my childhood home. She smiled, ears lifting, and the ship warmed another degree, traitor. We spent hours fixing what could be fixed and laughing at what couldn't. I taught the AI a new diagnostic called optimism. It failed the test. She asked about my jokes, why I used them when stakes were high. I said jokes were handles on heavy things. She said her people used songs. I said songs were handles too, just prettier. She considered that and nodded. When the message finally came, it was formal and tired. Councils spoke in layers, offering safety, restoration, ceremony. I let it play out, then muted it. She waited. They want you returned, I said, with honors. She closed her eyes, listening inward. They want the old story, she said, before you. I told her I hadn't meant to complicate anything. She opened her eyes and said complication was another word for choice. The AI cleared its throat and suggested options, numbered and dull. I asked her what she wanted. She didn't answer right away. She asked what I wanted. I said a future that didn't keep score. She laughed softly. You have changed, she said. You ask now, I shrugged, seemed polite. She told me then, not as prophecy but as fact, what her rescue had disrupted. Lines of obligation, ancient balances, the expectation that saviors looked like monuments. I listened without interrupting, which surprised both of us. When she finished, I said, "I'm still just a human." She shook her head gently. "You are a human who stayed." The pursuers arrived anyway, stubborn as habits. The ship trembled. The AI asked for permission to be clever. I granted it. She stood calm and spoke to the channel before I could stop her. She spoke plainly, refusing ritual. She said she chose. She said gratitude was not ownership. She said she would return someday, but not as cargo. The silence afterward felt earned. They argued, they threatened, they ran out of words. One by one, they disengaged, leaving markers like apologies. The AI released a breath it didn't need. I laughed, relief sharp. "See," I said, "just paperwork." She smiled, eyes bright, and said humans were dangerous with forms. We shared noodles again because continuity matters. She asked what came next. I said repairs, teaching machines to trust, maybe visiting somewhere that sold bad coffee. She said she would come, not because of debt, but because she wanted to learn how small choices changed large systems. I said that sounded expensive. She said curiosity always was. When the time came, she did not bow. She sat beside me and watched the stars hold still. "You saved me," she said without ceremony. I opened my mouth to deny it and stopped. "We saved each other," I said instead. The AI approved and archived the moment under growth. I set a course that made sense to both of us. The engines hummed steady. She rested, trusting. I felt different, not larger, just clearer, like a lens cleaned of fingerprints. "I'm just a human," I said, habit. She answered without looking, "Yes." The universe did not object. We jumped. The future didn't flinch. For once, neither did I. We made a small home of the improbable place, temporary and real. The AI named it Haven and then pretended it hadn't. I pretended not to notice. She taught the ship to listen without waiting for commands, and it taught her to complain creatively. I fixed a panel that had been broken longer than my patience. She watched, learning my quiet rituals, the way I paused before committing, the way I checked exits even when there were none. Another message arrived, this one personal, stripped of ceremony. An elder thanked me without thanking me, acknowledged impact without apology. I replied with fewer words and more honesty than I'd used in years. The AI asked if that was diplomacy. I said it was practice. We trained, if that was the word, for days that felt like weeks. She learned how humans guessed and adjusted. I learned how her people listened and waited. We argued once, sharp and necessary, about leaving. I wanted to keep moving. She wanted to return someday on her terms. We compromised, which surprised us both, and the compromise held. The ship healed. So did I, a little. I noticed I checked my reflection less often. I noticed my jokes landed softer. When danger flickered at the edge of sensors, I didn't rush. I trusted. That felt new and earned. When it was time to go, we didn't announce it. We simply left, carrying quiet like a tool. The AI plotted a path that threaded responsibility and curiosity together. She sat beside me, long ears relaxed, eyes on the instruments. "You are not minimizing yourself," she said. "You are contextualizing." I laughed. "That's a long word for a human." She said humans were improving. We crossed systems that had opinions. We helped where help fit and passed where it didn't. Once a traitor recognized her and bowed. She nodded and kept walking. He bowed to me too, confused. I bowed back, equally confused. The universe felt balanced enough. At the edge of a bright market, she paused. "I will go from here," she said. I felt the weight of endings and didn't joke it away. "You'll be back," I said, not asking. She smiled. "Yes," she said, "by choice." She touched the console, then my shoulder, grounding and light. "Thank you," she said, simple. The AI waited until she was gone to speak. "Crew reduced," it said. "Sentiment increased." I nodded. "Log it," I said. I set a course that felt right, not because it was safe, but because it was honest. As stars folded, I realized humility had